That day when I was coming down from the drugs and the alcohol from the night before, and I'm sitting on my knees in my dirty studio apartment in the West Village, and I said, God, universe, whoever is out there, I need a miracle.
Gabby Bernstein rose from rock bottom to global phenomenon. #1 New York Times bestselling author and spiritual teacher, turning her darkest moments into a mission to help millions.
That moment was the most terrifying moment and the most relieving moment.
From breakdowns to breakthroughs, this is a deeply personal reckoning with what it takes to truly heal.
The people that we choose to be in relationship with, particularly our romantic partners, often are a reflection of our own.
Joined by her best friend and yoga teacher, Tara Stiles.
I'm ready to fall apart again so I can put myself back together, because the more we allow ourselves to do that, the stronger we become.
Join hosts Martin Luther King III, Arndrea Waters King, Marc Kielburger, and Craig Kielburger for an honest, soul-stirring conversation about breaking cycles, reclaiming purpose, and what it takes to begin again.
What did you say to yourself the day before to say, I need to change?
My soul made that choice, that my soul said.
Welcome to My Legacy. Today's guest is Gabby Bernstein. Gabby Bernstein has built a global following by opening up about her personal journey from addiction to trauma to transformation. Gabby, we are so honored and so excited, all of us, particularly this wonderful woman, to have you with us here today. So Gabby, could we ask you to introduce your close friend who is your +1 here today?
Well, I love this format. I love being with you guys. I'm so thrilled to be here. And when I was invited to ask a +1 to join me, there was literally no question in my mind that my beloved soul sister, Tara Stiles, was going to be joining us today. And Tara is the founder of Strala Yoga. I'm not the biggest yogi. I'm not. I like a HIIT workout. I like my deep meditation, and I like my big HIIT workouts. The only yoga that I love is Strala Yoga. I could sit in a 2-hour Strala class with Tara and ask for more. And so that's my testimonial today for Tara. But she's a world-renowned yogi and spiritual teacher, and also one of my best friends in the world. And have the privilege of both actually living in towns right next to each other and having children that are growing up together and being a spiritual family in our little country town. And so you're going to see our connection and our shared love for each other here today. So thank you for letting me bring my +1.
Well, what a beautiful day. I have to tell all of our listeners and viewers that both of these ladies live in my phone. I want to start with your incredible friendship, because I know that you've described each other as lifelines. So Gabby, how did you meet Tara, and what about her made you think, I need her in my life?
Tara and I are amongst this community of a generation of spiritual teachers that started to do things in a new way. Even sort of being named in the media as the rebel yogi or the next generation thought leader. And so it was in the early 2000s, really around 2005, that my career began as a spiritual teacher. So we're talking about 20 years ago. And at the same time, Tara was in the same position. And we were sort of redefining the rules and expanding the spiritual lexicon and giving people permission to do it their way and to have a faith of their own understanding or a yoga of their own, and to sort of be more flexible with practice and to translate and demystify spiritual principles in a way that our generation was going to really get it. And so, as you can imagine, we really found each other, like magnetized towards each other at that time. And I believe that in many ways, we really grew up together as teachers because we had a shared mission and a shared intention. And we found our ways working together in really beautiful, creative, collaborative ways. And then as we grew up, we were the kind of friendship where we could meet up randomly in Berlin and have dinner, and having seen each other for 2 years, but we're both working in Berlin, and have this incredible dinner that we'll never forget. And then fast forward 20 years later, we live in the same community. And this is when the friendship has just escalated to the point where our children are dear friends, our husbands are friends. We will sit around the kitchen and just make food and do Tai Chi. And the second that I lie on the floor, it's like I'm a cat around Tara. The second I sit on the floor, Tara starts giving me adjustments. It's just the most extraordinary friendship. But the thing I'll say that is the most beautiful part of our friendship is that Tara's tuned into me, and we're tuned to each other in a frequency that's really special. And at a time when I was going through a lot in December and January, out of nowhere, I would get these voice memos from Tara saying, "I want you to know how much I love you. I want you to know how proud I am of you. You're serving the world. You keep going. Don't stop. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing. You're doing God's work." And she didn't necessarily know, but this was at moments when I'd be out traveling or really stressed out or struggling. And then right there, her words would come to me in a text message. Those are the kinds of friendships that you can't manufacture. They're a gift. They're a gift that you're given. You have to nurture them.
And those moments too, right?
Those
like
moments.
when people you're thinking about someone or you just need it, and without words, they know. And you get that it really is like a kiss from the ethers as well.
Ooh, I like that.
It
Beautifully
is.
said.
And it also resonates with me, the fact of stepping into something with all of these preconceived notions. For us, it is the work of the King legacy and, the building of the beloved community. And how do you keep the integrity of that, but still do it in your own way, in your own voice, and for this generation. And I think that's something that both of you all have done so brilliantly. And Tara, I know that you and Gabby met when she was literally at the beginning of her spiritual journey. What stood out about her to you in the early days before her best-selling books and before, all of this worldwide fame?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I see Gabby's, whenever you walk around the street with her, whether somebody knows her from her books or just sees her, she's always kind of coaching and helping and cheering people on. She's doing that all the time. And, back when we were sort of stomping around New York City trying to figure this out and help people, she was doing that. So that's the same Gabby, that same spirit. And I felt very similar. I mean, we came up before social media. If we had something we wanted to share with the world, we literally wrote down a flyer, posted it up in the East Village, stepped a few steps back and said, does anybody care about this? Does anybody want to get together to connect with themselves? Gabby was doing it in these beautiful ways that I was so impressed with, just sitting people down in chairs and talking to them about things. And to me, that was so courageous. I did it, of course, with yoga mats and help people get into their bodies and connect and feel. And then we would chit chat for a little bit afterwards. But we kept circling around and finding each other and cheering each other on. And I think at that time too, we both got these special gifts, just like today being around the incredible people you are. We both got to meet Deepak Chopra and Jane Fonda, and Gabby was all of a sudden Oprah was scooping her up and putting her in, really cool things. And these wonderful people, of course, they boosted our careers, but they gave us this emotional courage to stay connected with each other. And they kept telling us, sort of behind the scenes, keep going, stay connected with yourself, keep learning new things, keep improving what you're doing, but keep going and stay with each other. So I've just held on to Gabby my whole life. And I feel my whole life with yoga, life with trying to do these things and really help people. And she's that, that root of the tree for me, for sure.
We've seen this incredible movement that you're creating collectively on places like Oprah and Deepak Chopra and so forth, but it wasn't always that easy. And I want to honor that part too. Gabby, you have gone through a remarkable transformation, and your transformational journey is nothing short of profound. Can you take us back to that time and help our listeners and our viewers understand what that transformation was like? Because in your memoir, you were raw and you were vulnerable, and you spoke about drug addiction and alcohol addiction. You spoke about eating disorders. You spoke about self-loathing. What was that moment of hitting that rock bottom that made you change your perspective as saying, I need to have a different life? Can you take us back to that moment?
Yeah, and it's actually a very timely conversation because we're entering into the fall, and I'm coming up on 20 years of sobriety in October.
Congratulations. That's beautiful.
Yes. And that commitment to get clean and sober was not just a commitment to a life of sobriety, but it was a commitment to a spiritual life. It was a commitment to becoming a teacher, to stepping into a higher purpose that I chose. The day, October 2nd of 2005, when I made the choice to get clean and sober, I not only chose a life of sobriety, but I chose a life of service. That choice was always in front of me. So there was a period in my life when I was really struggling towards the end of my addiction. And I went and I got a psychic reading with someone that my mom referred me to. And the psychic kept saying to me over and over, "You're struggling with addiction." And I would listen to this cassette tape back over and over, listening to her voice in my beat up Toyota Corolla. And I'd be doing the alternate side of the street parking in New York City. And I'd listen to this cassette tape over and over while I waited for the parking to change over. And I remember hearing her voice saying, "You're struggling with addiction." And my voice quivering on the other end saying, "Well, it's not that bad." And then she went on and she said, "Well, you have two choices in this lifetime. You can stay on the path that you're on and it will be very difficult, or you can get clean and make a major impact on the world." And I just remember listening to that over and over and over and being in such a precipice of making that choice. And I could have gone either way. And I know that my soul, when I signed up to come to this world at this time in this way, my soul made that choice. That my soul said, "I'm going to go through this journey of trauma and addiction and discomfort so that I can resurrect myself in this lifetime and live to tell what it means to transcend those fear-based worldly experiences and live in that light and that magnitude." And so I can reflect back now 20 years and just with so much joy and gratitude for the commitment and the choice that I made to get clean and sober, but most importantly, for the commitment and the choice that I've made every single day since, to one day at a time just keep surrendering to a higher power, surrendering to a spiritual practice, surrendering to a therapeutic journey, so that I could just keep shining the crystal and get to the place that I'm at now today, where I feel very free and I feel very clear and I feel very aligned, and the most ready than I've ever felt before to actually do the service work that I'm really here to do.
Wow, Gabby, that, first of all, blown away. Collectively, we're all blown away sitting here. Lots of nods, lots of energy, lots of love to you. But I understand October 2nd, 2005 was that date, but take us back to October 1st, 2005. What did you say to yourself the day before to say,
Yes.
I need to change? Because our listeners, our viewers may be stuck on the other side of the road waiting for parking to change, listening to their version of the cassette, and what came through to you to talk to your soul.
You know, at the time I had a spiritual awareness. I was brought up very spiritual, and I had a awareness of spirituality, but I'd really turned my back on it in my days of my addiction. And so that day, when I was coming down from the drugs and the alcohol from the night before, and I'm sitting on my knees in my dirty studio apartment in the West Village, and I'm on my knees, and I said a prayer, but at the time I didn't know who I was talking to. And I said, "God, universe, whoever's out there, I need a miracle." And I heard a inner voice, a voice speaking to me through me, say, "Get clean and you will live a life beyond your wildest dreams." And that voice was so undeniable that I made the choice that day to get my butt out the door, walked into a 12-step room, sat amongst strangers who felt like brothers and sisters because we were all there for the same reason, very different archetypes in one room, all with the same intention. And I knew I'd found my home and I knew I'd found my path. That inner voice, that voice of wisdom, that voice of spiritual soul connection is a voice that I rely on. It's a voice that I've developed as a medium. It's a voice that I attune to and that I listen to and I allow guide my life to this day. But that was a real spiritual intervention that came through for me to put me on the right track.
Wow. Thank you.
Tara, you've become one of the most influential and inspiring yoga instructors in the world. Early in your career, what's something you had to unlearn to find your own voice?
I think the one big thing that I'm continuing to learn is to reject rigidity, dogma, stress, force, push, and struggle. And it's funny because when I come over to Gabby's house, she says I lean on her and do these things for her. But, I think most of us that, and you probably identify with this as well, most of us that try to teach something, we need to do it for ourselves too. So I lean on people so I can remember to soften myself. That rigidity, I used to, when I first started out, Gabby and I both got a lot of, this rebel yoga kind of punk rock press. And we both identified abusers and control and systems, that you all educate us on. And we try our best to
to fight back and to call out things that are bad out there. There's plenty of bad in the yoga community as well. But it took me a long time to realize there's a lot of rigidity, stress, and tension, and stuff on the inside that continues to need to be addressed with every single breath. So that's something that I've worked on the moment that I identified that the rigidity out there, the chaos and the violence out there is also in here. And we need that inner peace with every moment, every breath. And that's something that gives me a voice, that gives me something to talk about, to share about, to practice and connect with, that connection to the choice and the action of softness.
That the idea of softness, the idea, I think a lot about the idea of power versus force. In this world where it's so forceful, but there is a true power in that softness as well.
Yeah.
And I know all three of us are mothers, and I don't know for you all, we have a 17-year-old daughter starting her senior year of high school. And for me, as someone that has been a seeker and on spiritual journeys for so long, there is nothing like motherhood that will try your spirituality on every level. Gabby, as a mother, what has surprised you the most?
Being a mother is a very humbling experience because you think you've learned all these great personal development tools. You write the books about it. you get on the stage and you give lots of talks. And then you enter your home with your 6-year-old and you realize how little you know. and how much growth and opportunity there is every single day in every waking moment with your child. So for me, I remember making the decision to really be a student with my kid and let my kid be my guru. I remember the day that my child was born, I got a text message from Dr. Shafali, who's a tremendous therapist and particularly in the space of parenting. And she said, "Welcome to the world, your new guru." And she couldn't have been more accurate because the choices that I'm making as a parent are spiritually guided choices. And while I may be leaning into specific therapeutic practices and philosophies that have transformed my relationship with my child, they're spiritually led. Because there's moments where I remember at different stages of his development, I've been on my knees, like, what do I do here? And then this, beautiful message would come through of podcast, or I would get a text from a friend who's a child psychologist. So I feel that guidance and that wisdom always around me, and I use it. I ask and it's given and I show up for it. The more foundational knowledge I get and the more humble I am that I do not know the answers and the more teachable I am, the easier it is for me to navigate parenting because there's real truth in the psychology of a child and the psychology of the parent-child dynamic. And to be able to create that calm and that stability and that self-led energy. And I'm also, while I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm also trained in a therapy called internal family systems therapy, which is all about healing the inner children inside of us. And so the greatest gift I've given my child is the devotional practice of my inner child healing. Because the more I heal the burdened parts of myself, the more access I have to my inner parent, that self-energy of compassion and calmness and clarity and connectedness. And in that energy, I can be a great stable force for him to co-regulate with. So it's a balance of being humble and doing the therapeutic work to be a parent, but also the inner work to reparent myself so that I can show up with the greatest energy.
And let me just say that the older they get, I always say that being a mother is like literally taking your heart and putting it outside your body.
So the older they get, the more of a guru they become. The better teachers they become, right?
Well, it depends on the time.
When you said 17-year-old girl, I was like,
exactly,
right, yes.
exactly.
Yes.
I love the idea that it's both our children and candidly our life partners, the relationships we have that are our gurus in our lives. Like I learned, we've been lucky on this podcast. We sit down with Deepak Chopra, Gabby Bernstein, all these great people, which is incredible wisdom, present company very much included. but it is our relationships. It's the people closest in our life. It's holding our child or children. It's our loved ones. And so if I could ask, as you reflect on your child as your guru, or reflect on those relationships closest to you, what have those connections taught you that no traditional spiritual practice, no dogmatic spiritual practice, Tara, to use your words, ever could?
I think that the people that we choose to be in relationship with, particularly our romantic partners, often are a reflection of our own shadow parts. So they can be at times a false match for the parts of ourselves that we may feel are incomplete. And then when you come together with those partners, those incomplete parts can be activated. And the beauty of that is that if you are in a partnership where there's a choice, once again, let's use the word choice, to grow together and to heal together and to develop together, you can together allow those triggered sparks that happen in the relationship be your greatest learning device. So for myself and my husband, we've had the willingness to be the witness of the ways that we can activate those younger wounded parts of ourselves and then together join in healing. And I'm really one of the things I'm most proud of in my life actually is the therapeutic work I've done with my husband, which has been very, very spiritual work, but very devotional work of staying in it, even in the hard moments, staying committed, even when everything seems like it's breaking down. Because like I said earlier, our wounded parts of ourselves oftentimes have these false pretenses that some other human can be the source of healing, that someone outside of us can fill that hole. When we really find that we come together with the partner that's going to actually activate those parts the most so that the hole can be filled through the greater healing. And that for me has been my experience. It's been not about filling a hole, but actually filling that energy together through collective healing and through witnessing and through it's almost like you titrate in and come out, a little bit in and a little bit out, so that you're not just ripping off the Band-Aid all at once, but you're allowing the collective healing to happen over time. And then you wake up one day and you're like, wow, we're new. We're in a different place. This is a miracle. And so if you can look at your relationships through that lens, whether it be a marriage, whether it be a business partnership, whether it be a child, and instead of saying, this is such a difficult relationship, I can't stand this, look at the difficult relationships or the difficult moments in your life and say, thank you for being my greatest learning device. And then show up for it.
Gabby, I want to talk a little bit about, you just mentioned healing, the collective healing, but I want to turn to your childhood and something devastating that you didn't remember until 30 years later. I too was molested as a child. And so I know that path of healing, even though we're all so unique and individuals and our paths are unique. But your memories of being molested as a child came flooding back to you during a therapy session, right? So what shifted for you in those sessions to allow that memory to come back?
Well, it was around the time I was 36 years old and I was newly married. My husband had left his job of a decade to come work with me. A lot of the sort of structural things that were holding things together were being dismantled. And so there was a little bit of a shakiness in my life. And I remember the months leading up to remembering, I kept saying this mantra over and over, I can't go on like this. And I was having these mental breakdowns and I was having numbness in my body and these gastrointestinal issues and just panic attacks and just night sweats and just consistent somatic signs of chaos. But I couldn't really put my finger on it. And then I had a dream. And in the dream, I remembered the sexual abuse from my childhood. I woke up that morning with such a strong knowing. Not, oh, wow, that was a terrible dream, but that is real. That is real. That has been given to me as a reminder. But it was so terrifying and re-traumatizing that I just pushed it down and just said, let's lock that back up. And a week later, I was in my therapy and on my therapist's sofa lying down, she just asked one question that just reactivated and triggered me to fully embrace and accept that memory. And that moment was the most terrifying moment and the most relieving moment at the same time. The terror of accepting an exiled memory that I had dissociated from and pushed down and numbed out for decades, but the relief simultaneously of recognizing that's why I was a drug addict. That's why I was a workaholic. That's why I'm hypervigilant. That's why I have an anxiety disorder. That's why I have chronic gastrointestinal issues. That's why, which is all the answers just flooding in for me. That moment was so scary. And it was actually at a time when I wrote my most profound work, which is my book, The Universe Has Your Back. I would wake up every day in complete terror because I was reactivated into the trauma, and it was on a big trauma journey to uncover this and to heal, but it took a long time. And so I was sort of catapulted out of my body and very much re-traumatized by remembering this. And the only thing I had at that time as an anchor was my writing. And so I'd wake up every day with these pangs of anxiety, and I'd go up to my little office at the time, and it was this whitewashed room with these white floors and this white ceiling, and I'd sit at this little desk, and I just kept writing and writing and writing. And I wrote that book to heal myself. That's why I know that that book is the one that throughout the world, if I meet people in any country, in any airport, they've read The Universe Has Your Back. And the why? Because it healed me. And in the healing transmission that book gave me, that it's healed others. And so the memory, once again, while horrific as it was, and it was probably the most difficult time of my life, was the most important time of my life because it was a rebirthing. It was a time of saying, this is the lowest that we can be. Let's get back up from here.
That story and your process reminds me, sometimes, as Rumi says, the light is where our wounds.
The wound is the place where the light enters you.
Exactly. And what that also brings up, or remembering for me, is that so many times when my father-in-law, when your father was at some of his lowest moments, he would literally go up and preach himself out of being in despair, depression, or, so you go and you think, or you see some of his greatest speeches was because he was at his lowest emotionally. And it seems that you were writing yourself through your healing and taking so many others with you.
Scrolling won't change your life, but subscribing just might. Tap that button and stay connected to conversations that count.
And Gabby, on that journey, you have spoken about how somebody we're a big fan of as well, and I want to give him the love that he deserves here, Gabor Mate, helped you. And I really want to encourage people to read some of his books at some point. The Myth of Normal, When the Body Says No. These are incredible seminal works in my mind in terms of people going on their own healing journey. And for those who do not fully understand or maybe not fully appreciate the connection between childhood wounds, so as you were as a child and what happened to you, traumatic events as a child, and how you are now conducting yourself as an adult in terms of adult behaviors, help us understand that connection.
I'll speak to it from the work of also internal family systems therapy, which is another guide of mine, which is Dr. Richard Schwartz, who I highly recommend you guys bring on the show. I'll introduce you to Dick. So Richard Schwartz, a brother and contemporary of Gabor Mate and Peter Levine, and they all kind of collectively heal these incredible soul teachers, these men and women. And from an IFS perspective, the traumatized moment was a moment from a spiritual place. We can quote A Course in Miracles. It's from the descent from magnitude to littleness. It's when we forgot to laugh. And it's these moments when our little child brain gets the memo that there is terror, that there is fear, that there is extreme circumstances, that we are not safe, that we are alone, that we are unlovable, that we are inadequate. And as little children, our brains do not have the capacity to process those big emotions. So very quickly, what we do is we exile those feelings and beliefs, and we push them down, we lock them up. And these are what in IFS are called exiled parts. We say, nope, not going to deal with that, not going to touch that. And it's under lock and key. And at a very, very young age, even as an infant or 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3, we start building up protection mechanisms, which are called protector parts. And so what do these protection mechanisms look like? They look like, maybe in my case, hypervigilance and control. Because I was a little child that felt so out of control that I was going to start controlling everything around me to feel safe. Or it could look like the child that feels so inadequate starts to become a people pleaser because they feel like if I'm not loved unless I'm pleasing. Or the child that feels so in so much terror shuts down and numbs out and starts using sugar or shows or games to just check out. And these protection mechanisms never leave us. They become protector parts that begin to run the show that is our life. And we start to live as adults from protector part to protector part to protector part. And if you think, all of us here on this call right now, if you think about the parts of yourselves that are the most extreme, or the parts of yourselves that you're often like, oh, there it is again. It's a habit or a pattern or belief that just won't go away, that's holding you back. And you think about those parts of yourselves and you ask yourself, how long has this been around? Likely you're going to say forever, as long as I can remember. Because we build up these protection mechanisms so that we never have to face the impermissible feelings of those traumas. And so the genuine healing, the real root cause healing, begins by healing and befriending these protection mechanisms and softening to them, like Tara might say, softening, just gently softening into these protection mechanisms, getting into relationship with them. As we were talking about earlier, those are the inner children. These inner children that are just working on overdrive to protect us from having to feel that inciting incident of trauma.
So Gabby, when somebody comes to you taking that knowledge of somebody being in survival mode, they're disconnected, they're on edge, they're reactive, whatever that might be, what's the first thing they need to do? What's the first thing that you would tell them to do?
Okay, so I would first tell them to choose to check in instead of check out. So in my presence or even in a safe environment for themselves, to focus their attention inward. Because our knee-jerk reaction is, I don't want to feel this. I'm going to go run to the refrigerator. I'm going to go numb out on YouTube. I'm going to go pick up that drink. I'm going to run. Instead of running and checking out, check in. That's step one. And so you'd focus your attention inward. And then the second step is to become curious, just offering some curiosity inside and noticing, where does this feeling live in my body? And what do I know about it? Are there any thoughts or sensations or images or stories that come forward for me? And the third step is compassionate connection. And that's when you'd ask yourself, or the part of you, what do you need? Asking the little child inside of you, what do you need? And if you go through those 3 steps in 1 minute or more, the 4th step is revealed. You might check in and you check into the 4th step and you say, well, how do I feel right now? And you'll notice, maybe I feel more calm. Maybe I feel more connected to that part of myself. Oftentimes people will say, I feel more compassion towards that part of myself. And so these C qualities of compassion and calm and connection and clarity and courage and confidence, this is what in IFS is known as self with a capital S. It's our spirit, it's the God within us, it's the internal parent within us, it's the internal teacher, the inner healer inside. That true self is revealed when we help these activated parts of ourselves calm and settle. That's a quick way of describing the process, but it's an internal check-in rather than check-out.
Wow, thank you. So check in, check in, check in.
Tara, what was it like for you as her friend, watching her go through that realization and that pain?
I think it's such a gift to have a friend who's willing to check in instead of check out. The thing around Gabby, if she has a crisis, that's an exciting moment. Like she shared when she was on her therapist's couch, sharing that's the gold. That's the stuff that I'm comfortable there because I know she's okay. She's not okay when she's checked out. None of us are okay when we're checked out. We kind of appear okay to ourselves, to the world. We're holding on. We're sort of getting by. We're doing the things. But when we break down, when we're vulnerable, we all love that about each other. When your best friend calls and said, I've got this horrible problem, we don't really rush in and try to solve it. We love to listen. We love to be there. We love to connect and be together. So whenever Gabby calls me and she's like, this is going on, or I can just, sometimes with your friends, you just feel it intuitively. And I send her some other random voice note about how much I love her, how, I'm so grateful that she is available and is excited to dive into these situations. And it gives other people permission. It gives me permission. I do this work too, but when you have a friend that does it, you say, okay, where's my next fault line? I'm ready to fall apart again so I can put myself back together, because the more we allow ourselves to do that, the stronger we become. And I love that concept that softness is power. And when we're relaxed and calm and soft, we have so much more to give. When we're rigid and stiff and protecting ourselves, we feel in control, but we're really so close to burning out, and we're not going to be ever able to even reach our full potential, even when we're sort of tricked into it by this feeling of stress and struggle and accomplishment. So I get excited whenever Gabby's having a moment, because it allows her to have a moment, allows me to have a moment, and she's going to come back stronger, and so much more happens.
Wow, that's amazing. Gabby, how did Tara show up for you in your toughest moments?
Well, I think that she continues to. I think that what Tara just said that's so beautiful is that when I'm going through something difficult, it's an exciting moment. I love that way of perceiving difficult moments in general, but also my take on difficult moments. Because for me, the critical moments in my life have been like you said earlier, the wound where where the light enters, the breaking down to break through. So it is those moments that are the juicy moments where you're on the precipice of another up-leveling or of a new experience. And so having a friend that is a stable energy in your life, who that you can rely on, who is energetically there even when you're not speaking to them, who will be a phone call away or a 10-minute drive away to lean on, to rely on, is one of the absolute most incredible gifts of my lifetime. Having a friend like Tara, having a friend like that, not only is so soothing to my nervous system, and I know that it is mutual, but it's also this incredible reflection. I really look at the rise of our friendship and how close we've become in the recent years, and I see it's such a reflection of both where we both are. The devotional commitment to service, the devotional commitment to spiritual development, the devotional commitment to softening. To have a friend like that is also a reflection of where you're at in your life. The people that we surround ourselves with are a mirror of who we are. And so to be able to say, this is my +1 today, guys, that's a pat on my own back, right? I was like, go girl, I'm doing pretty good if that's my +1.
You're both voices who inspire people to seek wellness, seek guidance, and to truly protect their peace. Tara, what about you? What do you do to protect your peace?
Oh my goodness. Well, if it's all right with you, can I lead us through about a 30-second little thing to experience inner peace in a way?
Please.
Oh my
Please.
gosh, thank
Yes,
you so
please.
much. Wow, so grateful. So, I think it's practice, or at least something to do. One of these many things to do is have a bit of a brief practice. So wherever you are and wherever everybody at home is listening, finding a place where you're actually comfortable. And something that yoga and Tai Chi teaches us is to never suffer a bad position. So if you can get more comfortable, simply do it. Don't suffer here. So you can roll around a bit side to side or easy forward and back. It can be any direction that feels right for you. And simply like a tree responding to the breeze, allow yourself to find that nice centered place. And simply notice how you feel without trying to change or fix anything at all. Notice what's going on with you right now. What's happening physically, mentally, emotionally. Simply notice. And let your whole self soften here. So first a bit movable, a bit of a bend in your physical places, your joints, your knees, your elbows, your mechanical body parts that keep us moving around and keep us living our lives. And let your whole self soften, that mental, emotional, enigmatic, spiritual part of you, your whole self, everything together. Soften here. And simply notice what happens, your breath starting to move you every inhale, expanding, making more room, and every exhale, release, relax, moving you a bit inward. Your breath helping you be in harmony. And simply notice how you feel. And either eyes open or closed, start to notice a bit what's happening around you and how you relate to your environment. If there's people around you, if there's objects or animals, notice that you're a part of everything happening around you. And coming back to simply noticing how you feel. One more big breath together. Big inhale. Long exhale. Easy. And that's simple. I think that's a simple way to come back to that, hopefully inner peace, or at least noticing what's happening with us so we can make a good choice to take better care. And if we can take better care of ourselves, we have a better chance to use our gifts for good and use that higher good.
Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you. What came to me is that so sometimes peace and harmony is just a few breaths away. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
It has been an enlightening, a beautiful conversation. The friendship that you two have, I love how it dates back decades. And just to reflect back, subtly finding our daily prayer, humbly surrendering, and asking what miracles can we perform today. Thank you both so much for your incredible wisdom and life work.
Thank you guys. So beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed today's conversation, subscribe, share, and follow us on @MyLegacyMovement on social media and YouTube. New episodes drop every Tuesday, with bonus content every Thursday.